Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thrilling third free virtual Thursday. I'm your host this evening, Chris Stottinger with Pretty Gritty Tours, and tonight I am live broadcasting from the Foss Waterway Seaport. You can tell because it looks very nautical behind me. And if you're not convinced, if you're saying to yourself, surely that's just a setup, don't worry, we are actually going to walk around the seaport tonight. This evening is particularly exciting for a few reasons. Number one, it is our year-end event. Believe it or not, we're somehow at the conclusion of 2021, which is basically the longest year since it started in February of 2020. We are going on now to look at bolder and bigger things. And one of the things that's changing around here is that there is now an art exhibit down here at the Foss Waterway Seaport, which is a big focus of what we're talking about tonight. A photography exhibit by an Italian diplomat, adventurer, photographer, Stefano Benazzo. And while we're talking about that, you actually get to hear from him tonight, sort of about his passion, his inspiration, and his life's goals. And I think it really gives a great deal of context to everything tonight. But, of course, where would we be without our tried and true classic sponsors? Of course, Columbia Bank, Tacoma Arts Live, and I'm sorry, not Tacoma Arts Live, Tacoma Creates, and right down here with the Port of Tacoma. So, as always, if you guys have questions, comments, please let me know. There is a lot going on tonight, and I'm going to do my best to both show you the photography exhibit, but also to kind of fill in the gaps to give you some context as to how we got here, not just to the end of 2021, but of course to filling this space with voices that have long been silent, which I think is going to be a big resounding theme tonight. But before we go too far into this whole thing, we have a word from someone near and dear to the seaport. You get to hear from Brent, our executive director.
Welcome everybody to the Foss Waterway Seaport. This is your house, and I am delighted to have you guys here with us today. I want to be able to ask you for your help. As we get into the tail end of 2021 and begin to turn the calendar towards 2022, I want to remind you about the types of programs that we've been doing and the types of programs that we have coming up. But we need your support to be able to do those programs. We've had a fantastic partnership with Chris and Pretty Gritty Tours now for well over a year, where we've been able to sort of lean into the pandemic and turn a lot of our programs into virtual programs. We couldn't have done that without your support last year. As we get into our calendar year-end campaign, I ask you to click on the link that Chris is going to provide you, go to our giving page, and give what your budget can afford. $5, $10, $100. If you're feeling generous, $500. It all helps do what we do. And just to give you a little bit of a Scooby snack as to what to expect from us as we close out the year, is we have the Tacoma Night Market. We have the Sunday Brunch Market. We've got a fantastic shipwreck photography exhibition. We couldn't do those programs without your support. So I'm asking you, as we get into the holiday season, if you're feeling in that giving spirit, go to the website, give us a gift, and just make it a great year end as we get out of 2021 and look into 2022. We are excited about being able to continue our partnership with Chris, but we've got a lot of great things going on at the Seaport, and your support would help us make that happen.
So I have shared the link to that page in the comments section, both on YouTube and Facebook, and I've provided a QR code for you guys as well, which you can just open the camera on your phone, and once it looks at that, it should open a little website that you can click. And if you're feeling the generous spirit this holiday season, go ahead and help support our friends here at the Seaport. And if you don't get the QR code right now, don't be alarmed. I'll have it up at several more opportunities as we go out this evening. But also, welcome. It's good to see you guys tonight. If you're ready, here's what I'd like to do. I think we're going to go out. I'm going to give you a quick tour of the gallery today so you can kind of see what we're going to be talking about. And then I'm going to let Stefano introduce himself and kind of talk about what he's doing. And then we've got some questions for him that will be answered. And if you have questions along the way, we've encouraged you to ask them in the comment section below down here, and we can relay those to Stefano later. Or if you have questions for me or the Seaport, we're here. We're available tonight, so you can ask. Now, this is going to be the one with some fancy footwork here really quick. I'm going to attempt to switch to my remote camera. Pray for me. Let's see if this works. Okay, we're going to get some echo for a second. But here we are out at the Foss Waterway Seaport right now. Here's very Jimmy Fallon of me. But what we're going to do is I'm going to walk you guys down to the end of the Seaport right now and show you the Shipwreck Gallery. Now, Stefano's going to talk about this at greater length in a moment, but what he has done is essentially dedicated a huge part of his life and resources to photographing shipwrecks. And when he takes the photographs of these shipwrecks, what he's doing is attempting to give a voice to these wrecks and allowing them to speak about the crew and the people that were involved in their life. Now, as we're walking through here, it's over on the wall. So what I'm going to do is cruise you around and give you a fly through of the gallery so that you get to see what's going on down here. And if you have any questions, please just put them in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. But let's see if I can give you guys a little preview of what's going on here. So it's on this beautiful wooden wall right as you enter into the Seaport, and I'm going to fly you guys through here so that you actually get to see the shipwrecks. Everyone's being very gracious and letting me fly through really awkwardly right now. Now, one of the really nice things about this whole gallery is that it has been furnished with a program. So as you're going through, you get some information about where each shipwreck was photographed. And of course, a shout out to our generous sponsors who have made this particular exhibit possible: West Rock Commencement Bank and Dwyer, Pemberton, and Coulson. So let's walk back to the main hub right now. There's some good looking guy on TV right now. And I'm going to introduce you to Stefano and let him describe his art process to you and really how he draws inspiration for what he does and where he finds these shipwrecks, because they are global. He has gone from the north to the south, all around the world, looking for different shipwrecks of various sizes, boat wrecks, skiff wrecks, and then like multiple mast shipwrecks that are all beached. These aren't things that he has to dive for. They're ones that have been placed on shore and left to disappear. On my way back, though, I think it's an appropriate time to acknowledge, wow, this museum looks really good. If you haven't been down to the Foss Waterway Seaport recently, well, here's your sign. It's time to come back down and celebrate all that is going on down here. As we've walked through, you've probably seen quite a few handcrafted local boats. This is all part of the legacy and heritage of the area and is a huge sell to the area. All right, I'm going to switch back and see how this goes. There's no guarantee. All right, I think we're back. Hopefully you guys can still hear me. There we go. Let me know if you can see and hear me. And I'll check what the comments say here so we can actually take a look at everyone. Yeah, I see that you guys saw the very strange looking boat out there. So that is part of a new enterprise going on with, I believe, the LeMay Car Museum. And we'll have to get into that a little bit later. But yeah, there is a car in here. You weren't just seeing things. All right, so we're back. Let me introduce you to Stefano, and then he can describe kind of his process and everything to you with his own words.
Everybody, my name is Stefano Benazzo. I am Italian. I live in Umbria, 150 kilometers north of Rome. I am 72. I spent most of my professional life working as an Italian diplomat. And then I went on, and when I was no longer working for the government, I was able to travel. And I went to about 20 countries. I photographed about 450 wrecks. My first wreck I photographed in 1969 in Peru. I did 50 personal exhibitions around the world, including in the United States, Canada, and I will not bother you with the list because it's too long. I did books, I published books. The most recent one was published at the beginning of November in France, in French, and it's a series of 46 tales which were told to me by the wrecks while I was shooting them. So it's a bit of a different thing because usually you have men talking about ships. In this case, it's ships, or rather shipwrecks, talking about men who were on board. So you need to do a bit of a jump. It's a dream I had for many years. I'm sure shipwrecks have something to say. They have a lot to say. They told me a lot, and I am just the guy who was on the PC, nothing more. So they talked to me, and I put it in writing. But it's their inspiration, of course. Each one of the wrecks who is talking about what its life has a factual introduction about where the ship was born, where she worked, how long, how she got there. So there is a factual part and an oniric or dream part, but it's real. For me, it's real. I'm very happy that my exhibition will be in Tacoma, Washington, USA. I know from my studies and experience about windjammers and shipping from 1860 to 1930, how important Tacoma was in terms of trade between USA and the rest of the world. So when I received an invitation to Tacoma, I was really excited because for me, it's not a place on the map. It's the place where most ships arrived coming from Australia and from where they departed with lumber and went all over the world. So I have never been to Tacoma myself. I was in British Columbia and Oregon 2 years ago. I'm sorry I cannot be with you tonight and for the opening. When you think of ships or boats who were away for 4 years, 5 years, and did not come back home until they were full of oil, then if you imagine their life, you imagine why I felt so much emotion. The same emotion I felt when I was in Oregon and I saw one of the oldest shipwrecks, which is, by the way, still there and still in water, which is about 120 years old. So there are so many generations of people, of men, of maintenance men, of families. Let's not forget the families, because one tends to think, oh, shipwreck, sailor. No, it's not just a sailor. It's the families who were waiting at home. Sometimes they were waiting in vain. All of those have to be mentioned, and all of those create emotion with me when I hear, I will not say I talk to, when I hear the shipwrecks, because they are the ones who talk and I have only to hear them and to learn from what they say. If with my photos I am able to pass that emotion to a visitor, and without any message, a good picture is not a picture with explanation, maybe just the year and the place, because people might be curious to know if it was shot in the Falkland or Chile, Peru, Canada, Mauritania, Namibia, Greece, Scandinavia, Iceland, wherever. But the picture should be talking by itself. Everybody can shoot shipwrecks. There are 7 billion people. Everyone can shoot a shipwreck if he or she finds one. And there are a lot around the world. But I dare say that not many people, and I am being self-deprecatory here, not many people devote so many years and time and energy and passion to this thing. So yes, it is a mission in the sense that I try really to offer the possibility to those shipwrecks to talk about the men, and if they talk about the men are alive. That's the point, because there are a few monuments around the world, some in a lot of them in the USA, in Canada, some in Northern Europe, to sailors, of course, more to military men, but also to civilian sailors. There are a few to survivors in places where there has been a wreck, and so they erected a monument to the survivors or to the dead ones. There are monuments to the people who do salvage at sea in United Kingdom, but I'm sure also in United States. There are monuments like the ones that are like the Royal National Lifeguard Institution, and having an institution with such an incredible value and extraordinary capacity like the Coast Guard in the USA, I am absolutely sure that you have monuments. I am not a monument researcher, so I did not go and look for them, but they give something which make those people be alive. And that's what I try to do, because as long as you talk about someone, he or she is alive. The moment the last person able to talk about them is no longer talking about them, then they become history. I think that pictures of those boats should be taken. By the way, some of the ones I shot a few months or years ago have disappeared in the meantime, which gives me the proof that what I do is right, because to do it for future generations means taking pictures of them. So that's to show the importance of what I do. Importance, you might say that it's not important. It is, because those people need someone to talk about them. And I'm sure that those people, those sailors, are with the visitor when he thinks about them. In my house, I live in the countryside, and the country in my house I have 110 prints of my wrecks on the walls, and they keep me company. For me, they are symbols of life. That is important, because a shipwreck like Titanic is a symbol of death, unfortunately. Mine are the exact contrary. They are symbols of life. Those ships, those boats accomplished their mission, came back to shore. Their sailors did not die on board. So it's also the importance of accomplish one's mission, which covers a lot of fields all over history and everywhere. So it's not limited to the ships or the boats, but it's a wider concept that I have here. That's the mission I think we all have. Continue to give life and existence to those men who were working in a way which no one would imagine today. I insist on what I try to do for them because they are worth this attention and this care.
Double me. This was such a fascinating project when it first came to me and continues to be now because Stefano has focused on looking at something that everyone was ignoring. And I think when you look at the world today, right, where there's such a disruption in supply chains that becomes such a massive thing, it's the first time that you start to think about just how much of our life, how much of our economy, how much of our day-to-day is driven on the sea. And looking at hundreds of years of life on this planet being moved from place to place on the ocean, and then once one particular type of ship becomes obsolete, is just driven up onto a beach somewhere and left and completely forgotten, blows my mind. And so he's gone around the world to places where these incredibly important vessels that have become obsolete or neglected or left have been discarded. And then, as he said, he listens. He photographs each of them in such a way that it creates the emotion and the experience of that particular vessel and then tries to share it with his audience. And that was something, too, that I think was unique about this exhibit and just what is happening at the seaport right now, where there's usually such a factual edge to everything that's done here, sort of filling in the gaps of it, that to have something that's purely driven by creating a feeling or an experience to be shared and that it's open to interpretation, I thought was fascinating. And you would think it would be somebody else, right? You would expect some sort of lifelong artist, but Stefano is a lifelong diplomat. He has been a high-profile ambassador for Italy to several large countries, the US, Russia, Ukraine, and now he has dedicated his life to his real underlying passion, giving voice to these, I'm not going to say voiceless wrecks, but abandoned wrecks. So I had to ask him, I was like, how do you find yourself doing something like this? When does the hook, when does the bug catch you? And this is what he had to say.
Good artist or someone intelligent would give you a perfect answer. I have no answer. I just know that I was walking on a beach with my parents in 1969 in Peru. I saw a wreck with a horrendous stench because in front of it was a dead sea lion. But I felt attracted not by the stench, by the idea of that big ship which was there waiting for nothing. Because, you know, Peru at that time, it was not like India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, where you have crews ready to jump on a stranded, no, I wouldn't call them stranded, on ships which go ashore full steam to dismantle them. So it was just waiting there for its end and its death. And I felt attracted to that. And then I went down to Chile and Argentina, to the Strait of Magellan and Patagonia. And I noticed that nobody was caring about them. So you have a lot of people caring about ancient monuments and very beautiful things. But for me, that no one would be interested in knowing more about those ships and about the men on board. Of course, at that age, 69, I was 20 years old. So at that age, you don't think a lot about heritage and historic heritage and men on board. So I will admit that at that time I was attracted by something which I don't know about, why it came there. Maybe my first encounter with a shipwreck, but it was not a real shipwreck, was when I was 15 near Rome. Near Rome, there was a cinematographic filming place with De Laurentiis, which then left Italy and went to the United States. And he shot the Bible movie there a few years before. And of course, the Bible means the Noah's Arch. And so I saw the remains of that cinema contraption, which was nearly decayed. And it must have intrigued me a lot, so much that in my just published book, the first chapter is written by Noah's Ark, which belongs to most of the cultures around the world. And it had a lot to say, notwithstanding what you might find in the Ancient Testament or wherever, but still there was a lot to say. So that's how I came to understand that shipwrecks were interesting to shoot and indispensable for me to hear what they had to say.
There's literally so much in that answer for me to unpack. It's difficult to know where to begin. But I think to give some context for all of you out there, if you've ever encountered a sea lion, you know that they smell terrible when they're alive, and when they are dead, it's an overpowering smell. So I can only imagine for a moment myself in that position where you're wandering around a beach 20 years old with your family, and there is this mingling of senses where seeing the discarded body of a ship and then to have that overwhelming scent of death wash over you, I have to think that that leaves an indelible mark on someone. And clearly it has, because as you saw from that photograph, he has gone on to document shipwrecks again and again. And let's see if I can bring it up again so that you get to see it. I also love that the second most powerful experience for him was seeing the old set of Noah's Ark from when they filmed the Bible movie in Italy. And something about those two experiences leaving this burning zeal for telling the story of something forgotten was remarkable. So, of course, I had to ask him, what do you do in your spare time when you're not making photographic expositions of shipwrecks and letting them tell their own stories?
Apart from this, as the pandemic made it impossible for me, like for nearly everyone, to travel around the world, I went back to an old passion of mine, which is building models of buildings, usually churches, but also mosques, synagogues, and non-religious buildings. I just made an exhibition in Florence. And as you may know, Florence has everything talking about art. So being invited to Florence is a real accomplishment for any artist. And my exhibition lasted 1 month there, right in the center of Florence, in a place which was founded 450 years ago. And talking about history, there are hundreds, thousands of books talking about ships, but how many are talking about men? And you have books and encyclopedias about admirals, about top people, but how many talk about the small guy, the sailor who was in the forward peak and just staying there for months and having to go up in the mast and with any time, with suffering from physical pain, cold, malnutrition, illness. So that's why, without entering into a full-blown explanation of what they do, but I try to figure them and to give the people who know about those history, to give them the possibility to feel the same emotion.
And that really is the core of this exhibit, is that Stefano is trying to fill in the gaps, to bring emotion to a place where it's not readily available, I think. And what I love about the whole thing is that he is that guy who was like, but how does it work? Well, what's going on underneath it? I think we all know the person who always wants to just look under the hood of something to figure out what makes the engine of life run. And I think Stefano does that with the day-to-day. So much of what we talked about in the interview was that he is passionate about the unsung hero, the everyman out there who was the main economic engine and lifeblood of the world in this time. And we don't talk about them, as he said. You know, we really look at the highlights of history, but we don't really look at the shadows too much, which prompted him into this next point.
There is a lot of passion behind those pictures. As I said, I started in 1969, but every time I know about a shipwreck, how do I know about them? Because friends tell me, I know from Wikipedia, from history, from books, from a lot of sources. Every time I get near a shipwreck, it's an emotion for me, because it's not just a shipwreck made of wood and metal. It's something with people. Men were there, crews, passengers. And so for me, it's extremely important to be able to recreate the sensation I have, the emotion I feel. By the way, the same emotion I feel when I build architectural models, because men designed, built, and prayed whatever their monotheistic faith could be in those buildings. So they entrusted their souls to that being who justified construction of a building, in the same way as men entrusted their bodies to those ships. So there is, for me, a very strong relationship between what I do as a builder of architectural models and photographer of shipwrecks.
And I think there's a very key point that's revealed there, that the photography exhibit down here at the Seaport today is almost an exhibit on floating ghost towns, right? There's something that draws us to ghost towns and abandoned buildings and forgotten places lost in the mountains. And for some reason, these floating cities, these micro colonies that traverse the globe, have been left on the shore and forgotten. And I don't know if it's because of their remote location or because there's something intrinsically difficult to understand or mysterious about the life of seafaring that prevents people from attaching to them as quickly. But I love that it's been made more accessible here. That prompted me to ask Stefano if he has always been drawn to the sea. And here's what he had to say.
I had a dream for many, many years to sail in Southern Atlantic. And I did that 5 years ago. I sailed on a 60 feet ketch built in Canada for icy waters cruises. And I was there with a guy who had been sailing around South Georgia and Falkland Islands for about 50 years. So he knew a bit about what it's like sailing there. And I will tell you that even if I started sailing when I was 14 years old, I really experienced what real fear is, even with a guy who knew perfectly how to behave and what to expect. But when you have winds of very, very, very strong, I will avoid naming the number of knots, because it's always like fishermen who say that they caught something which was so many inches long. So I will avoid, but I will tell you that it was really frightening. So I can imagine what it was like to be on a ship, on not only on a ship cruising for trade around the three capes and being away for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, but also all the guys who were fishing. And fishing means not only the Norwegian fishermen in Falkland and South Georgia from 1905 to 1964, but also the people who went fishing from northeastern United States. When you think of ships or boats who were away for 4 years, 5 years, and did not come back home until they were full of oil, then if you imagine their life, you imagine why I felt so much emotion.
And that is just a great story. First of all, Icy Waters Cruises, which gives adventure luxury cruises around Cape Horn, premium. I feel like I may have missed a vocational calling in my lifetime. But what I love about what he said there is that he really went out of his way to put himself in a place where he could have a relatable experience to this passion that's called him. And I think on a micro scale, that's something that's now afforded to all of us down here at the seaport, in that these photographs designed to elicit emotion are now here in, as I say, I think literally every time, this historic treasure, a former functional warehouse that was part of the massive, incredibly highly invested economic engine of the area that was a gateway to the Pacific. This was the spot where maritime trade was occurring, and to come back down here and still have the smells and the sounds and the experience of the maritime community, but to also have one foot in the past, is truly extraordinary. I had to ask Stefano if there was anything that he wanted to convey to everyone here tonight, and here's what he had to say.
First, thank Tacoma and the museum for hosting the exhibition, like I do, because I'm very happy that it's there. I know, as I said, how important Tacoma is. I trust that people who will go there know what they are going to see. So go there with an open mind, without thinking about the pictures. I know it's contradictory, and it's funny for a photographer to tell the visitor, don't look at the pictures. Yes, that's what I do. Don't focus on the pictures themselves or the photographer, but focus on the people who were on board. That's what I ask people to do. So with an open mind, but totally devoted to the men who were on board, because that's one of the ways that those people will still be alive. And maybe there will be visitors who go there and have ancestors who were on board those ships. So by seeing those ships or the remains of those ships, of those boats, they might imagine what it was like and keep them in memory. So it's the concept of the duty of memory, which is paramount in what I do, and which I hope to make visitors feel the same way I do.
What I love about this too is not only do you have the photographs of the various vessels down here, but they're framed in such a way that you see the place where they were operating, right? Which, as you can see, varies widely from place to place, and also in the size and the function of each vessel. and I adore it. Also, if you're curious about some of Stefano's other exploits, one of the things that we talked about is that he has taken the extra step for those who need a little encouragement and to looking at this whole experience. And he's written a couple books. His most recent one is Shipwrecks Talk About Themselves. I think he briefly mentioned it. And he has a series of short stories, essentially, or dream memoirs that he's written for the various wrecks, in which they tell their story about the sailors that were working on board, or the captains in command, or the families waiting for them back home. And if you happen to read French, I can highly recommend it. There's also, I think at the end here, Stefano had an appeal that I would like to share with everyone.
Please let me know if you know about other wrecks, because there are so many wrecks around the coasts of the whole world waiting to be heard. I insist, not seen or shot, heard, so that they can talk about the men on board and their message can keep those men alive. That's the important thing. As long as there is someone talk about those men stay alive. And that's the mission that you use the word mission, so I'm just taking it from you. I didn't dare use it, but that's the mission I think we all have. Continue to give life and existence to those men who were working in a way which no one would imagine today.
Let's make sure that oh yeah, you can hear me. What I love about his closing point there is that it resonates so strongly with the mission of the seaport. And when you walk around here today, what I've always loved about this place is that it really focuses on small, handcrafted vessels. Like the Willets boats, the Willets canoes. It's got native canoes from the Puyallup tribe still here today. It looks at the intimate connection between the people of this area, the people who have lived here, and the sea. And when you're down here, each of these is something that was made for a purpose or for love and was handcrafted by someone in the area. This is truly a place built for and about the area, and that personal history of the area has been so beautifully displayed and encapsulated here at the seaport. I think everyone in the area almost has an obligation to at some point come down and get to experience this all. When you come down, you now also have the opportunity to experience the photography and the emotions that Stefano has captured from around the world. So we really still are an international port. Let me come back to our main anchor point here really quick. Oh, am I back now? Thank you guys for letting me know. I disappeared there for a second. I was saying, you've got a QR code here. This is an opportunity for you to be a part of the seaport history and legacy, to facilitate programs here and to ensure that everything that we've got down here continues to operate. And it's huge. I imagine that most of you out there tonight have been with us throughout the year and got to experience things like rum runners and smugglers, hidden hatches. We've got to talk about the various programs that have gone on here, the trade and the industry, the Port of Tacoma from its humble beginnings to now the 5th largest port in the United States. we've really got to dive into some deep topics. And there's so much more to come, including the educational programs that the Seaport puts on here, including their salmon hatch program, which I'm sure you'll hear more about as we go on. So if you can find it in your heart to donate to the Seaport this evening, I would appreciate it, and I know they would as well. But if you guys have questions or comments, please let me know. If not, for the Seaport's part, I will see you guys in 2022, and I really encourage you guys to come on down and get to experience the art exhibit that's down here right now. Obviously, Stefano is an incredibly passionate and talented guy, and I'm looking forward to seeing what everybody thinks about the photographs that are down here right now. So thank you, guys. I hope you all enjoy your evening, enjoy your Christmas and your holidays and your New Year, and I will see you in January 2022, just around the corner. Thank you all. Keep on exploring. I'll talk to you soon.